Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at a grade 5 GCSE maths test. Please do stop the video, have a go at each of the questions and then compare your solutions. If you run into any problems, always add a comment, I'll come back to you. I look forward to seeing you inside the video.
Hi, so this particular question is a grade 5 question. Don't worry too much about the 5B bit of it. There is actually a 5A, and then I've also got plans to create other tests as well. So it's grade 5 for GCSE maths. It should be accessible to higher students and also students who are on the foundation tier as well. It will give you extra practice. Okay, so the first question is that the train is travelling at a speed of 87, and we're being asked to work out, importantly, an estimate. So therefore I'm going to say it's not 87, it's actually 90, and that's good enough for these sorts of calculations. I can say it's 90 miles. Now that's 90 miles an hour, so therefore that's going to be equal to 60 minutes. Okay, now we've been asked to work out the number of seconds the train takes to travel 1 mile. So if I said, well, if I divide this by 90, I'm going to get 1 mile, which is what I'm interested in. However, I have to divide the other side by 90 as well. So it's going to be 60 divided by 90 minutes. Okay, and really it's just a case of converting that then to seconds. So that's exactly the same as saying 2/3 of a minute. There are 60 seconds in a minute, so therefore it's going to be 2/3 of 60, which is going to equal to 40 seconds for the train to travel 1 mile, and that's the answer to the first question. And then very typically with these sorts of papers it says state whether your answer is an overestimate or an underestimate. It's actually an underestimate. Now the reason it is because the train has actually been travelling at 87 miles an hour. However, we've calculated at 90, so that 40 seconds is just a little bit faster because the train is going a little bit faster than in reality. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. So let's have a look then at question number 2. Please do stop the video, have a go at each of these questions. Okay, so Andy, Baran and Chris share some money. Now I noticed in the question that it talks about percentages, so the easiest thing for me is I'm actually going to say that they've shared £100. So there's £100. Okay, now Andy takes 1/5 of the money, so in other words he takes 20%. So what's left is going to be £80 left. Okay, so 20% is equal to £20, and then £80 is actually left, which is then shared between Baran and Chris. Okay, so therefore, if we have a look at their share, if they were sharing £5, then Baran would get £2 and Chris would get £3. So they're sharing £5, that's absolutely fine. However, they're not. They're sharing £80. So therefore, they're sharing something which is £16 larger. So therefore, all we do is we multiply each of these ratios by 16 as well. So that's going to give me 32 to 48. So actually Chris gets £48. And then the question is, what percentage of the remaining money does Chris receive? Well, he receives 48 out of 80. So if we have a look at that, Chris is going to get 48 out of 80. We want it as a percentage, so I'm going to multiply it by 100. And then really, again, it's just a case of calculating that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide top and bottom through by 10, so I can knock those 2 zeros off. And then I'm going to say, how many 8s are there in 48? Well, there's 6, so therefore I can do 8 into 48 is 6. So therefore, I've got left as a calculation 6 times 10, which is equal to 60%. And that's the answer to that particular question. You might do your calculations slightly differently. That's perfectly fine. It's not a problem. That's the way it would work for me. Okay, let's have a look then at question number 3. So question number 3, 40% of a number is 240. So if I know that 40% is 240, it's going to allow me either to work it out as 240 equals 40% of number. Okay, and I'm going to convert that into just a little bit of algebra. So that's 240 equals 0.4 n, which is of a number. If I want to then work out the value of n, I basically do the calculation, which is 240 divided by 0.4. Well, that's just a bit trickier. However, if I make that a denominator of 4 by multiplying through by 10, it means then it will be 2,400 divided by 4 is n. So therefore the amount is going to be £600 as the original. I beg your pardon, 600 as the original number. Okay, so that's 600 as the original number, and that would be the answer to that particular question. If you wanted to, what you could do is you could divide 240 by 4, and that would give you 10%, that would give you 60. So 60 is 10%, and then multiply by 10 to get 100%, which is 600. So whichever way you do it is perfectly fine. There's no fixed solutions for any of these. Okay, let's have a look then at question number 4, which is a parallelogram. And the important thing with a parallelogram is that AB is actually parallel to DC, or CD rather. So therefore what you would do if you wanted to is just put some little arrows on there, and also AD is parallel to BC, so I'm just going to put 2 little arrows, and that's just to remind myself that it's a parallelogram. The reason that's important to me is the vectors are the same, okay, in parallel lines. All right, let's have a look then at vector BD in terms of A. So if I want to go from vector BD, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, actually I'm going to go to vector BO, which I know, and also I'm therefore going to go from vector to vector OD, and that will give me the journey, if you like, to BD. Well, BD is going to be, or BO rather, is going to be minus A. Now the reason being is it's in the opposite direction, so therefore that works for me. I'd have minus A. Now the other thing is, because it is a parallelogram, then actually OD is also minus A. So therefore I can say that's going to be plus minus A for OD. Therefore vector BD is going to be minus 2A, and that would be the answer to the first question. Okay, let's have a look then at vector CD, which is in terms of A and B. So CD is going to be the line along the bottom here, and to get to CD, what I do is I'm going to make the journey, which is going to be CO, and then I'm going to plus vector OD. Okay, well, CO, as we mentioned before, is actually going to be the same as OA because it's a parallelogram, so that's going to be vector B. And then OD we've actually already got from above, and OD is going to be minus A. So therefore it's going to be B minus A, and that would be the answer to question part B. Okay, let's have a look then at part C. Now it's fine in terms of A and B, the vector CB. So basically for vector CB, I'm actually going to just put this slightly higher on the screen here. So I'm going to put this up here, okay, just to make it a little bit easier. So vector CB is going to be equal to vector CD, which we've just worked out, and that's going to be plus vector DB. Okay, and if you follow the diagram itself, you should be able to work those through. If you've not had any experience with vectors, please do let me know, and I can give you some playlists to have a look at as well. Okay, so vector CD we've already worked out is going to be equal to B minus A, and vector DB is going to be 2A, because we know that BD from the beginning, the very first question, part A, is minus 2A, so therefore DB is going to be positive 2A. It's going in the opposite direction, and again you can pick that up from the diagram itself if you needed to. Okay, so let's tidy that up a little bit. That's going to give a vector of A, which is minus A, plus 2A is going to give us A, and then we've got positive B, and that would be the answer to that question. So a little bit more challenging. It is a 5-mark question, so it just takes a little bit of time to kind of work through, but we are looking at grade 5 type questions here. So please do let me know. I can always point you in the direction of a playlist if you needed to. Okay, let's have a look then at question number 5. Now this is a very typical kind of ratio type question where we've got red to blue to yellow. Okay, and it says there's 2 times as many red pens as blue pens. So if there's 1 blue pen, then there must be 2 red pens. Then it says that there are 3 times as many blue pens as yellow pens. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say, well, in that case, there must be a 3rd yellow pens. And obviously that's not great for a ratio. We need to make them as whole numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply through by 3 all of the different ratios. That's going to give me 1 yellow, and that's going to give me 3 blue, and that's going to give me 6 red, which would be the answer to that particular question. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. Let's move on then to question number 6. I think there's about 14 questions in this particular video, so we're about halfway through, something like that. Can't quite remember now. So there's a few questions, but I'd like to get through the whole video if we possibly can. Okay, so Sarah's buying a fridge freezer. 10% is added to the price. So basically what we're saying is the price itself of 330 is actually equal to 110% of the price, because the price itself plus 10% is the delivery charge. So let's just convert that then to something that's easier to work with. I'm going to call that 1.1, which is the decimal equivalent to 110%, and I'm going to make that P. So if I want to make P itself, which is the original price, it's going to be 330 divided by 1.1. Again, very difficult to do it with a decimal at the bottom, so I'm going to make that over 11, which means I've multiplied it by 10, so that at the top is going to be 3300 equals P, and when I calculate that, I'm going to get a value of P, which is the price, which is going to equal £300. Okay, and that's the answer to question number 6. Hopefully that's all right for you. Okay, let's move on then to question number 7. This one is 4 marker, so it's going to take a little bit of working through, but basically it's a fairly standard speed, distance, time type question. So she's going to drive a total distance of 420. However, it takes her 1.5 hours to travel the first 105 kilometers, and this is the important bit. So what we can do is we can work out her average speed using that piece of information. So speed is distance divided by time. Okay, so the distance is going to be 105 kilometers, and then the time it took her was 1.5 hours. Now when you calculate that, and again just in the interest of the video, it's just easier to sort of calculate that off on your own sort of way of calculating things, but it should give you 70 kilometers per hour. Okay, then it says use this information. So in other words, what we're saying is that the rest of the journey she's going to drive at 70 kilometers per hour. So let's have a look at what happens for the rest of the journey. Well, she's now got a further 315 kilometers to go, because she's got 420 in total minus 105, so that's going to be 315 kilometers that she's going to drive at 70 kilometers per hour. So therefore let's find out how long that takes her. So again, we're going to use speed equals distance divided by time. Okay, well the speed is going to be 70, the distance is 315, and the time is what we're trying to find out. Okay, now a little bit of an algebra trick here. I don't propose to kind of spend too long on this kind of working it through, but actually if you swap the 70 and the time over, you can get time equals 315 divided by 70, and if I calculate that, I actually get 4.5. So in other words, from it's going to take her from 7 o'clock in the morning, which is the 1.5 hours. So let's just have a look at her timeline. So her timeline is she left home at 5:30. It took her 1.5 hours, so that's going to be 7 o'clock. Okay, and then it took her a further 4.5 hours. So if we add 4 hours, that's going to take her to 11 o'clock, and then another 0.5, or if you like 30 minutes. So if I put 0.5 of an hour, that's going to take her through to 11:30. So the estimation of the time that she's going to arrive at her new destination will be 11:30 a.m. Now that's assuming that she travels at 70 kilometers per hour all the way. Okay, hopefully that's all right for you. Let's move on then to question number 8. Now, question number 8 is a fairly standard calculation, but really with all of these calculations you need to ignore the decimal point, then put the decimal point in afterwards. So what we would do is write 424 multiplied by 41. Now I'm very aware that some people will do these calculations a little differently to me. However, you should end up with the same answer, which is 17384 as a calculation, but then we need to put the decimal point back in. It's actually moved, if you can see at the top there, 3 places, so therefore the answer is going to be 17.384, and that would be the answer to question number 8. Okay, let's move on then to question number 9, which is a SohCahToa type problem. You need to be aware of SohCahToa, particularly when you're using right angle triangles. Okay, so what we're told is that AB is equal to 33 kilometers. Okay, we're also told that ABC as an angle is going to be equal to 60 degrees, so the drawing is definitely not to scale. Okay, it's slightly different, but what that allows us to do is to actually mark the drawing up as opposite, which is opposite this angle over here. Okay, so just be very careful about where you put your opposite. And then also the hypotenuse, which is the 33, which is the longest side of the triangle, and then the adjacent. And what we're being asked to calculate is the adjacent. So I would just put a couple of lines in there just to remind myself that's the bit I'm interested in. So therefore, if I write the ratios of SohCahToa, okay, the ratio I'm going to pick is actually the cosine ratio. The reason being is that I know the angle, so therefore I know the cosine of the angle. I also know the hypotenuse, and I'm going to be working out the actual adjacent itself. So cosine 60 degrees equals the adjacent, which is what I'm interested in, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 33. Okay, so if I multiply both sides by 33, I get 33 times the cosine of 60 is equal to the adjacent, and if I pop that in my calculator, these are always calculator type problems, I'm going to get that as 16.5 kilometers, and that would be the answer to this particular question, 16.5 kilometers. Okay, now just as a point here, always don't forget that it's going to be smaller than the hypotenuse on a triangle. The hypotenuse is always the longest side. Okay, let's move on then to question number 10. So given that A to B is 3 to 5 and B to C is 3 to 5, also find the ratio of A to B to C. So let's have a look at what's going on here. So A to B is 3 to 5 and B to C is 3 to 5. So the problem I've got here is the two values of B are different. One of them is 5 and one of them is 3. So what I'm going to do is make them the same. If I multiply that by 15, beg your pardon, if I multiply that by 3, okay, if I multiply that by 3 and I multiply that side by 5, I'm going to get both the values of B as 15, which is exactly what I'm looking for. However, what I have to do is also multiply the other ratio by the same amount. So I have to multiply C by 5, that's going to give me 25, and I have to multiply A by 3, and that's going to give me 9. So now at long last I can actually write A to B to C as 9 to 15 to 25, and that would be the answer to that particular question. Okay, hopefully that you're okay with these questions. Please do stop the video, have a go at each of these questions as they come up. Sometimes they look a little bit tricky, but they're not too bad. So in this particular one, this is fairly straightforward actually, because effectively we need to show the two lines are not parallel, but we need to have both lines in the form of y equals mx plus c, because m is actually the gradient. Okay, so if we look at L1, L1 is 3y equals 9x minus 21. So if I divide through by 3, I get y equals 3x minus 7, and it's a gradient, therefore, of 3. It's actually this bit here. Okay, let's have a look at L2. So L2 is a funny one. Y minus x equals 14. Okay, but we've got to make y the subject. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add x to both sides. I get y equals 14 plus x. I'm going to write it the other way around because that basically will tell me that the gradient itself is, if you like, 1. It would go into there, so therefore the gradient for this is 1. So the lines are not parallel because the gradient is not the same. Okay, you might want to actually write that down as a line or a sentence if you wanted to, just to be sure to get your actual marks. Okay, let's have a look then at question number 12. So Aaron buys a pack of 12 bottles of water. So how much does he spend? He spends £6.24, but then he sells all 12 bottles for 60p each. So therefore, if he sells 12 bottles times 60p, that's going to be 720p, which is therefore £7.20. Okay, so to work out the percentage profit, so percentage profit is going to be the difference divided by the original. So if I write that in for you, it's difference divided by original. Now the difference is going to be the difference in sales price from the buying price. So it's £7.20, take away £6.24. The original is £6.24, and it's multiplied by 100 to make it a percentage. So therefore you should get 15.3846, which is, to one decimal place, 15.4% profit, which is presumably not too bad for selling water. I don't really know. Okay, all right, let's move on then to question number 13, which is the last page on this particular worksheet. I hope that it's been useful to you. Okay, so triangle ABC is a perimeter of 19 meters. Okay, so I'm actually going to change that to 22. And when you download the worksheet, you'll be able to see that. I'm really sorry, that should have been corrected. Okay, but let's have a look at the actual diagram itself. So it's a right angle triangle, and what we've got is A, B and C. Now what we're told is A to B is 4, B to C is 10. Now if I add 4 and 10 together, I get 14. Take it away from 22, which means that A to C must equal 8. Okay, and this is a fairly kind of classic application of Pythagoras, because in order for it to be a right angle triangle, then you've got this a squared equals b squared plus c squared. So what we're saying is that if this is A, which is the hypotenuse, it would be 100, or if you like 10 squared, is going to be equal to B, which is going to be 4 squared, if I make that B, plus C, which is going to be 8 squared. So the question is this true? Okay, so let's have a look at that. Well, we've got 100 equals 16 plus 64, and 64 plus 16 is going to be 80. So therefore, not correct, or not a right angle. Okay, and again, if you wanted to put a line saying it would be equal, that'd be perfectly fine. Okay, and the examiner will know very much that you're using Pythagoras. You could quote Pythagoras if you wanted to. Okay, let's look at the final question in this particular worksheet. So a formula shows the cost of a taxi journey of X miles with 3 different companies. So we've got Alpha, Bravo and Charlie. So all we've got to do really is put 40 miles into the formulas. So let's have a look at Alpha. Okay, so this is Alpha, is going to equal 1.69 multiplied by 40 plus 2. Okay, and when you work that out, that's going to give you £69.60. Okay, bravo. Well, that's going to be 1.65 multiplied by 40, and that's going to give you a value of 66. And then finally, Charlie. Okay, that's going to be 1.2 multiplied by 40 plus 6.5, and that's going to give you a value of £54.50. So therefore, Charlie is least expensive. Okay, and that would be the answer to question number 14.
Hi, so I hope this particular test has been useful. Please do click on the link, subscribe to the channel, add a comment if you're not sure about anything, and I'll look forward to seeing you inside the next video.